So, well, please welcome Connie Fogal.
Be still, O Canada, my Canada. There are many who will not go silent into this night. So July 1st, 2006, do not ask for whom the bell tolls, O Canada, it tolls for thee. There is no joy this July 1st, 2006. To call it Canada Day is now a sad hypocrisy. That is because all the members of Parliament and our MLAs are complicit in the unfolding transformation of Canada without Canadians' informed consent. From a sovereign nation, independent and free, to a part of a new entity in a North American union, stripped of civil liberties and ruled by corporate greed. Launched under international trade in a format of free trade agreements, the transformation is almost completed economically and is in high gear now in the fields of defense, justice, immigration, health, and foreign affairs. A binational planning committee is in high gear integrating Canada and the USA militarily. Various committees are in high gear, implementing two nation-breaking agreements, both of which adopted the agenda and direction of the chief executive officers of the elite corporations of North America and driven by a powerful world elite. The first of the nation-breaking agreements is the Smart Border Declaration of December 2001, under the Liberals, signed by John Manley as Deputy Prime Minister and Tom Ridge of the USA Homeland Security Department. From this agreement flowed an integrated immigration and border control, and most importantly, anti-terrorist legislation that began the legal, judicial, and policing integration of Canada with the USA, removing civil liberties. The second is a Security and Prosperity Partnership Agreement signed by the Liberals under Paul Martin in May of 2005, actually I think that's March of 2005, with George Bush of the USA and President Fox of Mexico. The goal is total North American integration by year 2010. Then subsequently they've said maybe 2007, and I think the integration is much more advanced than most of us realize. David Emerson, the only re-elected one of the three senior Liberal ministers responsible for piloting the implementation of the North American Union under the Paul Martin government, moved comfortably over to a senior Conservative cabinet position under Harper to continue the job. In March 2006, Prime Minister Stephen Harper met with Mexico's President Fox and US President Bush in Cancun, Mexico, to escalate the integration of the three nations into one corporate-driven bloc. They launched the North American Competitiveness Council. They actually put together a number of people who were going to sit on the right-hand side of the leaders of these countries to tell them what to do. The Council comprises 30 senior private sector representatives, 10 from each country, and has a mandate to provide governments with recommendations on broad issues such as border facilitation and regulation, as well as the competitiveness of key sectors, including automotive, transportation, manufacturing, and services. The Council meets annually with security and prosperity ministers and will engage with senior government officials on an ongoing basis. The Competitiveness Council is an initiative of the Security and Prosperity Partnership of North America. On June 13, 2006, Prime Minister Harper announced the Canadian membership of North American Competitiveness Council. He proudly said the Canadian members of the Competitiveness Council are Dominique D'Alessandro from Manulife Financial, Paul Demera Jr. from Power Corporation of Canada, David Ganong from Ganong Brothers Limited, Richard George from Suncor Energy Inc., Hunter Harrison from CN, Linda Hassenfratz from Linamar Corporation, Michael Sabia from Bell Canada Enterprises, Jim Shepard from Canfor Corporation, Annette Verschuren from Home Depot, and Rick Waugh from Scotiabank. These are your political leaders, unelected, unaccountable. I am delighted, Harper said, that these accomplished individuals have agreed to apply their considerable private sector expertise to help us identify and pursue initiatives that will create a more competitive North America. First, we had Paul Martin's Liberal-led minority government, at the time sustained by the NDP, and now we have Stephen Harper's Conservative-led minority government sustained by the Bloc Québécois. These have rung the death knell for the public interest and the public good. Two elections, 2004 and 2006, held in the middle of this transformation, saw not one of the mainstream parties nor any mainstream media profile this death dance. And still they are silent. It was Mussolini who equated corporatism with fascism. The leading lights directing current government come from the corporate world, a world with no soul, no heart, no morality, no conscience, no justice. But be still, O Canada, my Canada. There are many who will not go silent into this night. We join hands in common chorus and direction with those of the USA and Mexico who champion the interests and the life force of humanity. We salute and celebrate the universal truths of justice, liberty, and equality, which bedeck the path forward to independence and sovereignty. The disgrace in Canada is that there was not one member of Parliament that voted against the anti-terrorist legislation. In fairness to the Canadian government, they have in this past year made some changes on the security certificates, which are one of the mechanisms that deal with the removal of habeas corpus. Habeas corpus is simply the responsibility and the right of your jailer to bring you out of jail, bring you to the public within a certain period of time. And under the Patriot Act and under our anti-terrorism legislation, people are picked up and put away, and they've lost the right of habeas corpus. It's very difficult for a lot of these people who are arrested for the longest time right after the anti-terrorist legislation in Canada was implemented. We didn't even know how many people had been arrested. Just about all of them who were arrested were subsequently released and no charges were ever laid. One of the speakers who was supposed to be here apparently has been identified on Canada's new no-fly list and isn't here. That no-fly list, the concept of a no-fly list, let's just realize in the Western world, the concept of our justice system is innocent until proven guilty. This no-fly list is an absolute reversal. We're now guilty until we prove ourselves innocent. Where is the uproar? What happens with this integration process is everything is done piecemeal, and so that nobody really feels the full impact of its horror because it's done in bits and pieces. At some point, eventually, the totality of the police state apparatus is going to hit us, and we're going to say, how did this happen? The NDP did make a little statement, apparently a press release, then they spoke out against the no-fly list. But where were they when it came up before Parliament a year ago? Why have they not come out? Why are they not moving us in the streets? The Green Party, I don't know what their position is on the no-fly list. I haven't heard it. I don't know what their position is on the anti-terrorist legislation. I haven't heard it. I know that they have at their last meeting taken a position to abrogate NAFTA, but then in the next line right after they say, however, if there are negotiations, these are the things we want these Section 11 removed, and we want this and this and this, which basically is a statement they're really prepared to negotiate NAFTA. You don't negotiate NAFTA. Nobody has negotiated NAFTA. That's been the position of a lot of the progressives in North America and the NDP line, even though the membership says we want out of NAFTA. Who's going to negotiate? The guys who've got this in place, they've got everything. Who would ever give up everything when they've already got everything? And the process, the implementation process of the NAFTA arrangement, and then all that's happening now is an expansion of NAFTA into the other areas. NAFTA was the economic. Now we're going into the military. We're going into the social system. We're going into the foreign affairs system. We're going into all aspects of how a nation is run. All of that implementation, all of that process is growing and is being done incrementally and is not going to be negotiated. And so when even some people say, and when they finally started talking about the Security and Prosperity Partnership Agreement, which everyone was denying was even happening, when they finally start talking about it, they're using words like negotiating. Well, and even some of the language that comes forward by the NDP in Parliament, or even people in our municipalities that are talking against TILMA, the Trade and Investment Labour Mobility Agreement, which is the municipal equivalent of NAFTA, only it fills in all the holes that NAFTA had left. They talk about negotiating. These agreements have nothing to do with no negotiation. These are part of the actual plan for restructuring North America and then subsequently the world. NAFTA was the first step of a new constitution of North America. Let's get that very clear. Finally, after all these years, can we not have leaders in this country that are acknowledging that NAFTA is a first step to a new world order? We have a clear position, abrogate NAFTA. We have a clear position. If you don't control the creation and issuance of your money, you have no power. And again, when are the leaders of our respective countries going to accept and acknowledge and read history and find out about the fact that it doesn't matter who sits there elected by us if there's somebody else that controls the creation and issuance of money, because that somebody else has all the power? When are they going to finally start acknowledging that? And don't think for 1 minute the business of the Amero, those of us in Canada who understand the power of our precious jewel of a Bank of Canada. Those of us have been trying for a long time, and they're not only people in the Canadian Action Party, but other organizations that talk about the power of the Bank of Canada. We're maybe the one remaining place in the world that already has an instrument that exists. It's right there. We don't have to have any great big struggles with a whole bunch of politicians about creating a new something. We have an instrument, a legal instrument. It's called our Bank of Canada. It has all the power and authority in the Bank of Canada Act to be used to deliver all the economic needs of a nation without the weight and the burden of perpetual debt that's imposed on us by the banking system and the financial elite. So, what are you going to do about that?
Where's your table?
Right at the back. And the Amero, they don't talk very much about the Amero, but just remember that the single currency is something that's coming, that's part of the plan. It's one of the things they really keep silent. They sell all this stuff to us in bits and pieces, and at one level it kind of looks good. Well, if we have a single currency, it'll be really easy to move back and forth. And then Canadians, our dollar will be equal. We won't have a dollar of lower value than that of the United States. So it'll just be easier to flow back and forth. And it's nice and easy to travel in Europe, with the euro. You don't need to worry about changing your currency. Yes, it has those kind of that kind of an advantage. But in the European Union, there is a central bank, but no nation has any authority and control over it. That bank dictates all the economic decisions of what's to happen in Europe. And it is an offense for any nation to ask any question of what that central bank is doing. There are representatives from the areas of Europe to that bank, but they're not representatives from the elected people, they're representatives from respective banks who go and talk about what they're going to do in terms of running the money and the financial situation of Europe. It would be the same here. You have to realize that in the North American Union, it would be like the European Union. The difference is there at least they had a chance to do some talking about whether or not they were going to have a European Union. We haven't even been given that opportunity. First of all, everybody lied to us and denied it. It was the Canadian Action Party, this small political party that's first started exposing it. Okay, how 9/11 changed everything in Canada. I said this, and I say this. The lifeblood of Canada is being drained and replaced with the cold blood of a military, industrial, financial elite who lust for unlimited power and profit. Is this what you want? No. The excuse for it is a story full of contradictions and lies. The event of 9/11 was the trigger to justify the end of Canada as we have known it and loved it and wanted it to be. 9/11 is the reason for sending our sons and daughters to spill their blood in a foreign land for U.S. control of the world's dwindling oil supply. 9/11 is the trigger to justify a permanent North American war economy to line the pockets of weapons manufacturers. 9/11 is the trigger to starve to death our social programs like medical care, education, unemployment insurance, old age security, pension plans. 9/11 is the trigger to justify the total restructuring of the administration of Canada, not under the direction of our elected parliament, but under the dictates of the military, industrial, financial elite of North America. 9/11 is the trigger to justify the end of even a pretense of rule by the electorate, and instead to transfer control of our lives to tribunals, unelected by us, unaccountable to us, unrepresentative of us, with no way for us to remove them or challenge them or to defend our interests. 9/11 is the trigger to justify a police state, a birth-to-death surveillance system to track us and to prevent our dissent. 9/11 is the trigger to justify increased taxes to pay for this infrastructure to imprison us. All this brought in and about under the direction and cooperation of our prime ministers and their cabinets under both Liberal and Conservative party regimes, with no opposition by the NDP or the Bloc Québécois or the Rising Greens. I want to end with a quote from Mahatma Gandhi. And this is for all of us who, listening to all the things on this weekend. When I despair, I remember that all through history, the ways of truth and love have always won. There have been tyrants and murderers, and for a time, they can seem invincible. But in the end, they always fall. Think of it, always.